Hello and welcome everyone to today's online discussion for the COP26 Principal Partners. I'm Anna Jones, I'm a presenter at Sky News and I'm delighted to be your host today. Now we've got close to 7,000 people joining us live, made up of customers and colleagues from each of the 5 principal partners who are taking part in this special event. So joining me to answer your questions today will be from Natwest Group CEO Alison Rose, and a special thank you to Alison and the team for helping to organise this event on behalf of all of the partners. Also with us is CEO of the National Grid Group, John Pettigrew, Keith Anderson, Chief Executive of Scottish Power, Alistair Philip Davis, Chief Executive of SSE plc, and finally Jeremy Darroch, Executive Chairman of Sky. Unfortunately, President of COP26 Alok Sharma was due to be with us today to give us the government's perspective on why COP26 and climate change is so important, but due to government business, he's unable to attend. However, he has taken time out to send us a message. Thank you to everyone who pre-submitted questions. Because of time constraints, we have had to limit the number we're able to ask, but I'm going to be reading a few of those out, and we've also arranged for some of them to be asked live so the CEOs can hear directly from their customers and their colleagues. So let's get started. First over to Alok Sharma, who was appointed full-time president for COP26, the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference in January.
Good afternoon. My sincere apologies that I cannot be with you live today as planned, as I'm en route to East Africa. But I wanted to send Natwest a big thank you message for organising this event and also for being one of our principal partners for COP26. And thank you also to SSE, to Sky, Scottish Power, National Grid, Hitachi and Sainsbury's for their support of COP26 as our other principal partners. And I really want to encourage all of you listening to help us make the summit a success. COP26 is going to be a major moment for our planet. 6 years ago, the world came together and forged the Paris Agreement with the goal to avoid the worst effects of climate change by limiting global temperature rises to well below 2 degrees, aiming for 1.5 degrees. It's a fantastic ambition, but at the moment, we are way off the mark. Temperatures have already risen over 1 degree since before the Industrial Revolution, and the climate crisis is closing in. The effects of this are being felt around the world. The last decade was the hottest on record, and through my work on COP26, I have witnessed the devastating impacts of climate change. Melting glaciers, sea level rises, crop degradation, deforestation, and pollution choking some of the world's great cities. I've spoken to communities on the front line of the fight against climate change, about how their lives have been disrupted, how their livelihoods are threatened, and how their very homes are at risk. We cannot go on as we are. If we do not change course, things will deteriorate rapidly, unleashing a level of human, economic, and environmental catastrophe, the likes of which the world has not seen before. And time is unfortunately running out. If we want to keep 1.5 degrees warming within reach, we must halve our emissions over the next decade and hit net zero emissions by the middle of the century. Now, governments can't do that alone. It needs all of us. It needs businesses, it needs investors, it needs civil society, and yes, individuals. So COP26 has to be the moment we all get on board and work towards this aim. Businesses can be ambitious in reducing their own emissions, offer customers green, sustainable options, and inspire people across the country, build support for climate action amongst customers, amongst clients and colleagues. All of our principal partners are committed to reaching net zero by 2050, or indeed sooner, demonstrating clearly that profits and sustainable choices can go hand in hand, which is why our relationship with them is so very important to us. They are showing the world corporate action at its best. And our COP26 presidency is urging all businesses to take action. I really hope all of you listening will consider how you can get involved too, through events leading up to COP26 and, of course, the Together for Our Planet campaign. And also by signing up your company or organisation to the Race to Zero campaign, which commits organisations to reaching net zero by 2050 on science-based targets. We can make COP26 the moment we turn the corner on the climate crisis. So let's make it happen together. Thank you.
So a message there from Alok Sharma. Well, I'm also very pleased to say that we do have Andrew Griffith MP with us today. Andrew is the UK's net zero business champion, and his job is to support the country's business community to make credible plans to get to net zero by 2050 or earlier. And he's also charged with showcasing the UK's place as a global leader in tackling climate change. He's working closely alongside the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, and COP26 President Alok Sharma as well. So, Andrew, I'd like to bring you in to kick off our discussion this afternoon. And first of all, do you have anything to add to what Alok Sharma was saying there about why we as individuals should all care about COP?
Thank you, Anna, and it's great to be with everybody this afternoon. Look, I think Alex said it really clearly, and I think you've got the clear call to action and the imperative for change. John Kerry's described this climate summit as the world's last best chance, and I really think there is the brilliant opportunity to align the global geopolitics, the US marching firmly back into the Paris Accords, China engaged and on the playing field for the first time, and that real sense of imperative 6 years after Paris. So the first thing is, we can do this. All of the stars are potentially aligned. And secondly, because we can do this, all of the technology that needs to exist in order for us to tackle this most existential climate crisis already exists today. We just need to scale and to distribute it more. So it's a really good opportunity. And we should all care because we're all hugely vested in the success of the climate summit in November.
And Andrew, as net zero champion for the government, you've got a brief to get businesses to all sign up. So how are you going to do that?
Well, starting today, Anna, we've got some fabulous businesses, some fabulous business leaders. I'm not going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do it together using the ferocious problem-solving power of business, this wonderful life force that's extended our quality of life, made us live longer, be more prosperous, find vaccines. So we absolutely have all of the ingredients to solve this challenge. And I'm framing a very simple ask of businesses to act themselves, as all of the leaders and the platform have here today. Take their pledge, join Race to Zero, set yourself targets, and then set even higher ones to make sure they're suitably ambitious, and then show others, again, like we're doing today, show others what you're doing, and so that they can emulate. We're all now in the world of how and when, not if or whether. And so I think showcasing the things that businesses are already doing to encourage others and give them the confidence to go on that journey. And thirdly and finally, tell your supply chain, tell your customers. These are huge domains. The cost of achieving this and the ease of achieving the changes we need to make are infinitely easier, and we can move that much faster if we all move together at the same time. We're all each other's keeper on climate. So bit of act, bit of show, bit of tell, and work together. And if there's 7,000 people here today, then consider yourselves all hired. You're all climate business champions, and I need all of you to go and spread the word in the 31 weeks that we have left to save the planet before the world attends that UN Climate Summit in Glasgow. Okay, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to put a question to each of our panellists, starting with Alison Rose, CEO of Natwest Group. Now, Natwest Group launched their new purpose and strategy last year, which has climate very much at its heart. It's the only bank supporting COP26 in Glasgow this year, and recently announced that it achieved net zero carbon emissions for its own operation in 2020. So with all that in mind, my question to you, Alison, you bank 19 million people and 1 in 4 businesses across the UK. So what practically are you doing to help your customers to tackle climate change?
Thank you. Well, look, firstly, I'm delighted to be here and joined by the other COP sponsors and partners. And I think echoing the point, this is something we will only all fix together. The point that you make in your question, I think, is critical because it is about practical help and support and supporting the transition to a low carbon economy. As one of the biggest lenders to business across the UK, we have a really important role to help finance the transition and provide tools and support, as well as financing for renewable energy and support. So practically, we've been doing a number of things. Things such as launching a green mortgage, which we did in October last year, to really help those customers who really want to make a difference. We know that the demand is there. 76% of our customers say they really care about the climate, they want to make the change, but they don't know how to do it. So what can they do to make a difference? So green mortgages, a great example where we're funding new mortgages, sustainable mortgages that will make a difference. We're also supporting our business customers. And in this, I'm really mindful of the fact that dealing with COVID, impact on the economy, as well as all of the challenges, they have a lot to do. For our larger customers, we have ESG financing. We've supported green bonds, over 36 financing initiatives, over 23 billion of financing to help our larger customers help finance their transition. But for smaller businesses, particularly SMEs, they don't have huge resources. And so therefore, what we're trying to do is develop the tools and help to give them the tools to measure their emissions and then practical help to change. So we've recently partnered with Microsoft to develop a new tool for SMEs and small businesses to measure their emissions so that they can make changes to their supply chain. We've also partnered with Octopus Energy to help consumers make the transition to electric cars and have a future mobility group working with sectors to measure emissions and also how we transition. And then most importantly, it's about financing the change. I set a target last year to have 20 billion of financing for renewable energy by 2022. By the end of last year, we were already at 12 billion. So we'll exceed that 20 billion this year. So financing the transition. And then at a more practical level, we have in this country an amazing set of entrepreneurs who are creating jobs, who are making the change. And so we're holding 25% of places in our 12 free accelerators up and down the country in regions across the UK for climate-related businesses and entrepreneurs to create change. So those are the practical steps that we're taking. But importantly, we're also saying we need to transition away from the harmful impacts. And I think transition is really important. So we're working with oil and gas companies, those sectors, for credible transition plans to help them make the change. So those are some of the practical steps. And I think for me, it's about working in collaboration, working in partnership. As Andrew said, we're not going to solve this individually. We're going to have to solve this collaboratively. And for me, as a bank, as a leading partner of COP, it's about putting practical tools and steps and financing and transition plans to help the shift, as well as getting our own house in order by being net zero.
Alison, thanks very much indeed. So let's put our next question to Keith Anderson, Chief Executive of Scottish Power. And Keith has full responsibility for the company's activities in the UK, including plans to invest £10 billion over the next 5 years in renewables, networks, battery storage and green hydrogen. Keith, our question comes live today from Christy Patterson from Scottish Power. So Christy, go ahead.
Hi, Keith. My question is, why did you choose to be a COP26 Principal Partner?
Hi, Christy. Look, thank you for the question, and look, thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Look, I think this is a brilliant forum. I suppose at one level, the simplest answer I could give you, Christy, to that question is, if you listen to what Alok Sharma just said at the start, and then also Andrew, I would almost turn the question back around and say, why wouldn't we want to be involved? I mean, if you think about the opportunity, the challenge, the size of what needs to be done, it's absolutely incumbent upon companies to get involved in this and step up. When you add into that the COP, which is, it's the biggest moment every year in climate change and tackling climate change, the fact it's coming to the UK for the first time it's coming to Scotland, it's coming to Glasgow, and every one of those steps makes it more and more closer to us as a business. It's in our hometown, and therefore we want to get involved and be a part of that as well. Added to that, the fact that 25 years ago we started on this journey ourselves. We were predominantly a coal generating company, and 25 years ago we made our first move into renewables with our first wind farm, and now we're a 100% renewable generating company. So we are at the forefront of tackling climate change, but what we want to do is spread that word out further, get more people involved in it, work with other businesses, and really, really importantly is work with the citizens of the country, work with people out there to help them get involved, to feel like they can take a part in tackling climate change and be a part of this mission as well. The whole future of our business is now about building more renewables. It's about looking at tackling decarbonising transport, electric vehicles, about sorting the issues around the way we heat homes. Everything is about tackling climate change for the future of us as a company. So COP to us is an absolute no-brainer, if you like, and that's why we want to be involved and we want to be a part of this.
Okay, Keith, thanks very much indeed. Time now to bring in Jeremy Darroch, Executive Chairman of Sky. At the helm of Europe's largest entertainment company, Jeremy has been a leading figure in sustainable business for nearly 15 years. He's been the driving force behind Sky's environmental initiatives, including Sky Rainforest Rescue, Sky Ocean Rescue and Sky Zero, the business's commitment to become net zero carbon across its entire value chain by 2030. And Jeremy, our question comes from one of your colleagues, Pooja Patel, who's a business strategy graduate at Sky and who'd like to ask their question live. So Pooja, go ahead.
Hi, Jeremy. Young people around the world are taking to streets and social media to have their voices heard on climate change. How do you think businesses and governments will engage with young people to ensure their voices are represented at Uscop and COP26?
Well, hi, Pooja, and thanks, everybody. It's great to be here. I think that's a brilliant question, Pooja, and I think it really gets to the heart of many of the issues that surround climate change and the journey we're on. And it is because the reality is your generation is going to be dealing with the impacts of climate change to a much greater extent than my generation. And all of us here today on this call, of course, are the people who are in positions of power where we can change things, we can impact that. And how do we do that in a way that not just listens to young people and understands their views and their voice, but I think goes further and really respects those views and then acts upon those views as part of that. At Sky, we've got a whole plethora of things that we're going to be doing in the run-up to COP, just to name some of them. I'm delighted that we're supporting Uscop in Italy. We're going to be using our huge reach as a massive media business across Europe to explain these issues in the build-up to COP. Sky News, for example, here in the UK, will be running a daily climate show. Sky News regularly reaches 150 million people around the world every month. So we'll use the power of our voice through channels like Sky News, Sky Nature, Sky Sports to really bring these issues to life. The final thing I would say is that to echo some of the points that Alison made before, when you talk to people about the issues they want to see businesses act upon, they very consistently say three things. They say they want to see businesses act upon the environment, they want to see businesses act for young people, and they want to see businesses act together in concert rather than just on their own. And I think that captures the essence of COP and the role of business and what we can and should do. So we're on a mission, we're on a journey. Young people, I think, are right at the very, very heart of that. And I think all of us have a duty of responsibility to not just the planet, but to young people to make our voices heard and to back that up with deeds and actions.
Jeremy, thanks very much indeed. Well, next up, we've got John Pettigrew, Chief Executive of National Grid. Across the UK and the US, National Grid is enabling the energy transition with commitments to be net zero by 2050, setting interim targets too of an 80% reduction by 2030 and a 90% reduction by 2040. So, John, our next live question comes from one of your colleagues, Sam Young, Data Science Manager at National Grid. Sam, go ahead with your question.
Hi, John. For many companies and governments, public perception is really important. They need to be seen to be doing something about climate change. And that's one of the risks, is that what looks good to the public and what actually reduces carbon emissions is different. and leaders are kind of incentivized inappropriately. As someone who actually cares about actually achieving net zero, what do you think we should do to help have things that encourage the right behaviors and like avoid greenwashing and spin?
Hi Sam, great to see you, and thank you for the invitation today. Fantastic question. Well, I think the first thing I'd say is I think increasingly the general public see when organizations don't genuinely believe in climate change and aren't taking real actions and are just really greenwashing. But I think there are some things that all organizations and all leaders can do as we think about this going forward. So first of all, I think it's really important that not only do people set really stretching, ambitious targets that are sort of 2030, 2040, 2050, but actually you've got very clear targets for the next 1 to 5 years and that you can be held to account on them. So people can see exactly what the leaders of today are doing to deliver climate change over the next few years. One of the things that we've done at National Grid, as you know, is that we last year launched our Responsible Business Charter. And in that, we set out deliberately what our ambitions were. And quite often they were things that we haven't quite worked out how we're going to do it yet, but it's the right ambition in terms of the climate, but also some very firm commitments about what actions we're going to take over the next couple of years. And the reason we did that is we want to be held to account. We want to be held to account by our shareholders, by our key stakeholders, by the general public, that the things that we say that we're going to do, we will actually do to support net zero and climate change. I think there's an interesting debate going on at the moment in the industry more broadly around whether public companies should look to have resolutions at their annual general meetings to actually get their shareholders to vote on their action plans and then to be held account as publicly listed companies that they are delivering on that. That's something that National Grid has decided to do this year. So we will put a resolution to our shareholders setting out our action plans for climate change, and then we'll take a vote on that. And then we'll go back every year and report on the actions and the things that we've done. And then finally, of course, the most obvious thing is around remuneration. So for leaders, as well as being rewarded for the business performance in terms of financial performance and operational performance, I think it's absolutely critical that leaders today are also incentivized financially to make sure that they're delivering on the environment as well, and they're held to account on that. So thank you for the question, Sam. Great question.
Indeed, and thank you to you, John, for that answer. I'm going to introduce now Alistair Phillips-Davies, Chief Executive of SSE. SSE is already investing around £7.5 billion in low carbon energy and electricity infrastructure over the next 5 years, pledging to reduce its carbon emissions to net zero by 2050. And Alistair, our question to you comes from Claire Russell, Digital Improvement Lead at SSE Renewables. So Claire, it's your turn to ask your question. Claire.
Thank you. Hi, Alistair. COP26 is a huge global climate change summit where world leaders need to commit to more ambitious targets. But realistically, what impact can UK companies hope to have by partnering with this event?
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Claire. And again, thank you for inviting us to this event and for all the organisation around it, as well to Natwest and others. Look, ultimately, we want to see a much bigger global commitment coming out of this from governments, and that's something that clearly governments have to lead on. But I think it is important that as companies, and you've got a number of companies here, we can actually show leadership and we can show clear support and we can actually go out and deliver. As noted at the start, we've got a £7.5 billion investment programme ongoing at the moment, and with partners and project financing, just since lockdown started a year and a day ago, we've managed to reach financial close on £10 billion worth of projects in the UK, created thousands of additional jobs as well, which I think will be very, very important as we look to drive a green recovery. However, COP26 represents something where we want to kickstart in an even bigger way the low carbon transition. Things like powering past coal, where we Scottish Power also on here have already closed all our coal-fired power stations, and how many companies are investing in renewables and taking that forward. We've got the opportunity as a company. We've already been engaging with companies in other countries to look at what that transition is. We've got an important report coming out at the end of this month, which will talk about the experience across the UK many companies in the UK as to how we've done the various things we have to drive the huge increase in renewables that we've got here. And what we want to do is be able to share that with other countries and ultimately other companies within those countries to show them what can be done. It would also be good to be able to learn where they've had significant successes and where they've been able to move forward. And in the case of the UK, as I said, we've closed the bulk of our coal plants. Certainly the two generators here have already done that. We as a company are also building the world's largest offshore wind farm currently at Dogger Bank. We're building the deepest tethered wind farm as well off the coast of Scotland currently. We're about to build some big new transmission systems that are going to hook up Shetland and hook up what will be one of Europe's largest onshore wind farms when it's completed. And also, as we look at all this renewable generation, when the wind isn't blowing and when the sun isn't shining, we need to look at things like storage, and we need to make sure that we've got flexible generation. So it's been good to see government here making real advances on carbon capture and storage policies. And we'll certainly be playing there with a number of other companies, some of whom aren't represented here today in that. And we also have a unique asset in Scotland, Corrie Glass, which will be one of the largest pump storage businesses across Europe. We've got the opportunity to work with government to get that built as well. So we can not only make sure that we deliver lots of renewables, but we also deliver the backup and the flexible generation that we need. And I think companies' abilities to share the lessons of how we achieve that globally will be really, really important in supporting government's efforts to really kickstart decarbonisation and make COP26 a real start of something very different and very new on our journey to 2050 and net zero.
Alistair, thanks very much indeed. And Alistair mentioned storage there, and that's actually the subject of a question that's been submitted. It's specifically to the energy providers within the group. It reads, what are your plans for supporting the necessary provision of electricity storage to help facilitate the journey to net zero? So that question goes to John, Alistair and Keith. John, let's start with you, shall we? And storage technology, as we heard from Alistair there, it's key to speeding up the replacement of fossil fuels with renewable energy, isn't it? Making sure that people have power even when the sun's not shining or the wind's blowing. What are your plans at National Grid?
Yes, at National Grid, we're the electricity system operators. We are the folks that make sure in real time that the lights stay on and that we're matching demand and supply. And one of the challenges and the opportunities that we face as part of net zero is, of course, as we're closing down all these fossil fuel generating plants, we have to find different ways of managing the system. So fossil fuel plant was really good at making sure the system stayed stable. Whereas, as you said, wind and solar is either there or it's not. So actually you lose all of the inertia in the system. So one of the fantastic opportunities that we have is that battery storage is a wonderful resource in being able to provide power in super quick time. And therefore, as the system operator, as we see more and more renewable generation connecting to our system, what we're looking at National Grid is different products and different services to make sure that the lights stay on and we don't get any flickering or any sort of instability in the system. So we've been developing these new products, and battery storage is absolutely critical to that. And we continue to see that it's going to grow and grow and grow as we see more and more renewable energy connecting to the system.
John, thank you. So over to you then, Keith. What role does battery storage play in Scottish Power's ambitions to get to net zero?
Yeah, look, John's given us a brilliant engineering explanation as to how the grid works, and I'm not going to try and trump him on that or explain it a different way. You know, the whole system is changing so rapidly because we're switching from coal through gas to renewables, and it changes. We're changing the way we use power, we're changing the way we generate power, and storage becomes a critical part. From two perspectives. One, the great thing about batteries is they can put power back onto the grid incredibly quickly, and that offers a whole load of advantages to the way we operate the entire system. But also, batteries are really good from the perspective of linking them with wind farms, where right now, if there isn't enough demand, if we're not using enough electricity in the system, and there's a lot of wind power being produced, actually we lose some of that renewable energy. And we want to capture all of the renewable energy we make. You know, it's absolutely critical that we do that over time. So as and when the wind blows, or if it's solar plants and the sun's shining, we want to capture all of the power. So even if we can't use it all instantaneously on the system, let's store it. And it's always been one of the great conundrums of what we do around the use of electricity across the whole of the UK is how can we store it? And batteries are a great way of doing that over short periods of time. And we can also link it into other forms of storage longer term as well, whether that's hydro storage, possibly even in the future, hydrogen storage. So right now as a company, we are very, very focused on making massive investments into building battery storage facilities next to all of our wind farms. That's what we want to do. And we think that will be a great solution going forward to have even more renewable power at our fingertips as we electrify the economy.
And Alistair, to you as well, how important is this issue as far as you see it at SSE? What are your plans there?
Yeah, well, in order that we can support the grid and we can support what John's talked about, and in line with other players, there's a number of things we're doing. Batteries are important, and actually our board meeting, which starts later today and goes on through the morning tomorrow, we'll be laying plans in front of that for in excess of 500 megawatts of batteries that we're looking at, and we've got sites for currently across the UK, so I think that will be important. SSE is already the largest storage operator in the UK. We're very fortunate that in all the fantastic lochs and glens in the north of Scotland, we have huge amounts of reservoirs there that store lots of energy, so that we can store that in terms of water when it's raining, and then bring that out when we need to. I've mentioned Corrie Glass, which is obviously again a water storage. It'll be an opportunity to potentially build 1,500 megawatts of pump storage. It'll be the largest and most ambitious pump storage plant developed across Europe in decades. I think that'll be very interesting. And then, as Keith alluded to as well, we've got the possibility of hydrogen. We're certainly looking at investing in hydrogen, looking at doing tests in people's homes to utilise hydrogen for heating and things like that. And we operate the UK's largest onshore gas storage business, which could easily be repurposed in the future to store hydrogen. So we've got a lot of investments going on, and as people have already said, a very important part of making sure that the grid is safe and secure, and that John and all his team at Grid can make sure that that everything runs smoothly as we provide power and increasing amounts of power to power people's homes, but also transport and heat going forward.
Great. And Alistair, sit tight, because I think we've got another question coming for you. This is from a member of the audience who wanted to ask their question live. It's Andrew Lloyd from Intelligent Growth Solutions. So please go ahead with your question, Andrew.
Thank you, Anna. In his witness statement, A Life on Our Planet, Sir David Attenborough implores us as a species to decarbonise, to reverse deforestation, and to start to produce food in new spaces, indoors, within cities, even in places where there's no land at all. Beyond decarbonisation of power generation, what are you as energy companies doing to facilitate these transformations?
So, Alistair, do you want to pick that up quickly?
Yeah, sure. Really happy to, and well, over the medium of Zoom, I've been fortunate enough to come across IGS before. We've certainly had conversations with them and other people. I think we're going to see electricity usage. People talk about doubling and tripling over the next 20 to 30 years on our way to net zero. Things like vertical farming, which is something that IGS has a clear interest and a very big position in, are important going forward. The ability to run farms underground, but utilise electricity to provide specialist light and heat for them to make sure that we grow crops in an entirely new and different way. All of that is going to be important. We've got a big customer business in the UK with over half a million business customers, and making sure that we engage with those customers, whether it be for vertical farming and all sorts of other ways in which we can contribute to making sure that we provide clean, green energy for businesses as they provide things like heat, light, and very, very importantly, food for us going forward. So something that we're definitely interested in, and I'm sure we'll be continuing our discussions with IGS in the future.
It's a fascinating area, isn't it? So let's go to our next question now. This is also live. It's from Douglas Palam from the Conservation Volunteers. So go ahead, Douglas.
Thanks, Anna. My question is, how might businesses engage, support and inspire their colleagues and their customers to be the power behind tackling climate change?
Alison, why don't you pick up on this first of all? What are your thoughts?
Great, thanks for the question, Douglas. Look, I've talked about how we can help our customers, and I think working with them on putting the financing in place, working on credible transition plans and what the benefits of that transition are, both financially for them, but also more broadly for their business. So working really closely with customers on credible transition plans, putting the money behind the new initiatives, so into renewable energy, the 12 billion I talked about last year, and making sure the choices are there. But also for our future customers as well. If I think about the program we run in schools, such as Money Sense, which is a financial education program, we're just launching a new initiative called Save the Penny, Save the Planet. So putting the tools and the information in the hands of your customers where we know there is the need. For colleagues, I think they're customers as well, but for us, for our colleagues, we have something called our Sustainable Network, where our colleagues are really advocating around change. We're also working with partners on the conservation volunteers, where we're going to commit to plant 100,000 trees across the UK and be part of that, and educating our colleagues as well. We have had 1,500 colleagues go through a climate course with Cambridge University and Edinburgh University. So again, informing, educating, and putting tools in the hands of customers and colleagues who make the choices and can really help inspire and drive the change.
Alison, thanks for that. John, the same question to you.
Yes, thank you, Davis. That's a really great question. I'll keep it short, actually. So I think one of the things that we've been very reflective of is that the UK has made fantastic progress, I think, in the journey to net zero over the last few years, but actually it hasn't impacted hugely on customers' lives yet. So a lot of the decarbonisation has come through changing generation. But as we look forward, if we are going to achieve net zero, it is going to impact on people's lives. And to Alison's point, I think there's just a huge opportunity for us to help with the education so that people really understand what it means to own and operate an electric vehicle and how you're going to charge it. What does it mean to have hydrogen providing heating to your home? And I think that's a real opportunity for us to really engage with our customers as we actually see them change the way that they live their lives to support net zero.
And Jeremy, what difference do you think that businesses can play in helping change mindsets and behaviours?
Huge. To echo what Andrew said at the top of the show, I think business is the life force. It is the connecting force that connects policy all the way to consumers and actions. If you think of all the businesses on this call today and all of our supply chains and all of our employees, I suspect we pretty much cover the UK anyway. So our power is enormous to drive change, but we need to understand that BAU is not going to cut it. We have to be bold, we have to be committed, and we have to really follow through hard. My experience at Sky is when we've done big initiatives, three things have happened. First of all, we can palpably see customers' mindsets and then the behaviours start to change. Second, it's very easy for our supply chain to plug in and they change rapidly because they want to support and know how to support. And then finally, we make our colleagues part of the mission, part of the journey, and they can become advocates in due course. So what a great opportunity for business to set a positive agenda through bold action and really bring some of the things we're talking about today to life.
And Andrew, what are your thoughts on this question of business inspiring colleagues and customers, and what role can government play as well?
Yeah, I think, look, two things. Business has this fantastic, authoritative and trusted voice and the ability to communicate simply. Government's not always so good at that. So that's a fantastic asset. You just heard from Alison a minute ago about the power of planting trees. You know, those little things communicated well every day, queue up to make a huge difference. I think government has three things to do. I mean, it's got some carrots, and there are a lot of carrots. It's got some sticks. If you look at things like the switch off to automotive, there's some real signalling there in terms of both incentives today, but also a little bit of regulation to sweep up the back of the peloton so that from 2030 onwards, you know, it's known where the demand curves will be. But finally, and most importantly, I think it's for government to provide the vision. And what an exciting vision this is. Whole new industries are going to be thrown up. New careers that none of us could ever have dreamt of. The UK is going to get big new market shares in some of these markets that don't even exist today. I love the idea, the one encapsulated by Kennedy. You know, when he said in 1962, we choose to go to the moon in this decade, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. 7 years later, you know, that at the time that speech was made, no one had ever left Earth's orbit. 7 years later, they landed on the moon. So I think with our colleagues in our organizations, a business has some of the most wonderful colleagues and the power and the capacity. It's inspiring our colleagues, not being afraid of the challenges, but using those challenges actually as a source of inspiration. Because if we can do that, we really can change the world.
Okay, lovely. Well, let's come to our next question. And we're seeing a lot of themes forming in the questions that we've received, specifically around the threat of not tackling climate change. So I'd like to invite now Deepak Ratner, who's internal audit within Natwest Group, to ask his question live. Deepak, to you.
Thanks, Hannah. My question is, with everything going on with Brexit and COVID, do you feel that the progress on climate change has been limited?
And I'm going to put these questions, first of all, to Alison, and we're quite tight for time at the moment. So to warn you, before we go into this little section, Alison, quickly pick up on that point, would you?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we're very mindful that businesses are facing huge challenges because of COVID, but the demand is there. We can see it from our customers. And I think, as Andrew talked about, the opportunity to build back a more sustainable, greener, fairer economy is in front of us. The imperative of change is there. We have to act. I think the demand and the pace for change is even more now, but we have to, as business leaders, do more to help and put the tools in place to make the transition, because nobody will be able to achieve it on their own. So I think the demand is there, the collaboration even more critical than ever.
And Jeremy, Sky's got ambitious for environmental targets. Could the demands of COVID and of Brexit set those back, do you think?
So I'll keep it short. No, it will definitely not do that. We're more committed than ever. And I'm struck by the parallels between COVID, a threat to from the natural world, if you like, to the broader threat for climate change. What COVID also tells us is when governments, businesses, innovation, science work together in harmony to change something, we can overcome it. So we should see that as much a force of optimism, I think, as we come through this. But we're very, very committed to this pathway now.
And sticking with this question, Keith, do you think there are lessons from the pandemic for business, the need for preparedness in the face of a huge crisis? Keith?
Yeah, look, I think there's lessons for all of us. I mean, if you think about all of the things we've stopped doing over the last year, as we open up the economy, as we come out of lockdown, let's not go back to the old normal. So don't go back to bad habits. So as individuals, if we've started to walk, cycle, run, if we stop using cars all the time, if we're using public transport, let's keep doing that going forward. And then as businesses, we've got the most fantastic opportunity to what politicians would call build back better. So what is that? Is let's invest all of our future and all of our money in renewables projects, in creating that new renewable electric future for the whole country. And in doing it, we'll spread the investment across the whole of the country. We'll create jobs across the whole of the country, training opportunities for people across the whole of the country, and we will massively transition the economy. We'll build back better, and we'll get that green economic recovery. It's a fantastic opportunity for us.
And Alistair, do you see any positives to be taken from what's been a truly appalling time in this pandemic? We have seen unprecedented levels of global investment, scientific advance as well. Could that give us hope for what could be done for climate change?
Yeah, I think that there's no doubt that what the pandemic's brought is clearly a lot of misery to an awful lot of people, but the innovation and science that will hopefully bring us out of that now has been very, very strong. I think in the energy sector, we've been particularly good at keeping the investment flowing, keeping sites open, keeping assets building. All of the three energy companies here have still got significant ambitious plans, have gone through a number of major transactions and things of that nature to keep the money flowing. As we talked about in our case, we've announced a number of major projects which are world leading over the last 12 months. Other people will have done the same. I think that focus on using technology, innovation, and just generally where people are in terms of their ability to respond to crises. The green recovery, building back better, levelling up, and particularly delivering a just transition so that as we go to a greener economy, we make sure that the old economy areas probably like oil and gas. We've been very proud to take a lot of people out of that industry and retrain them to work on our wind farms and things of that nature. Those are all important things, and I've seen huge commitments from staff and senior leaders across the industry in delivering that.
And Andrew, are there lessons to be learned from COVID for the government's response to climate change? And will the pandemic and Brexit have an impact on progress, do you think? A quick thought on those issues.
Yeah, look, of course, there's lessons to be learned. The COVID pandemic wasn't business as usual. It was an existential crisis. Many would argue that climate action is an even more existential crisis. And so clearly, none of us should manage it on a business as usual basis. This is at the heart of the government's policy. The Prime Minister has the Prime Minister's 10-point plan, and the UK has set the most ambitious climate target of any of the G20 nations. So it's absolutely at the heart, and we shouldn't manage it business as usual.
And John, what's your view?
I'll just pick up on one element of it, which is Brexit. I mean, I do hope that we will continue to work in collaboration with our European partners. So we have benefited massively over the last few years in working in collaboration to get to where we've got to in terms of the climate change. We have a fantastic resource on our shores in the North Sea. And if we work in collaboration with Europe, which I know the government is doing, post-Brexit, there's a real opportunity to minimise the cost to consumers for net zero and the energy transition we're on. So I'm very hopeful that we will continue to work very closely with our partners in Europe to help to deliver climate change.
Okay, and as everyone has been saying, reiterating today, climate change can't be tackled by the government or big companies alone. And a question that keeps coming through to us is, what can individual consumers do to tackle climate change? Keith, what do you think?
Look, this is down to all of us and everyone. And in fact, as part of being a COP partner, we've signed up to the UN's Business Ambition Programme. And they quite often use a good old Chinese proverb that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one single step. And that's the way we need to think about this, is that everything we do as individuals actually helps to contribute to tackling climate change, thinking about how we travel, how we use cars, whether we do or don't fly, using public transport. All of that helps to get us on the route to tackling climate change, and all helps us get towards net zero. So COP26 to me is about engaging the public, engaging citizens, and making people feel that they are contributing to tackling climate change, and everything they do helps us tackle climate change.
And Jeremy, consumer power is huge, isn't it? While businesses can help inspire individuals to tackle climate change, consumers also can pressure business to make positive changes as well, can't they?
Yeah, it's massive. Look, businesses will always change according to customers' behaviour and customer demands. That's the purpose of a business. So it's never been easier as a customer, as a consumer, to make your views known. I would really hope and urge people who are on the call today, keep doing that. Keep making your point of view known. Demand more from businesses. Switch your business away from businesses that aren't doing enough to businesses that are, and businesses will respond. So it's a very, very, probably the most important force, I think, in driving business change.
And Alison, what's your message then to individual consumers?
Consumers, make the choices, be informed, educate yourself, and recognise the challenge. This will only be solved with collaboration and partnership together. But the opportunity is enormous to create a sustainable future for many. But get informed, make changes, work with partners.
Alison, thanks very much indeed. We've just got one more question. It's a detailed one, but I'll just come to a couple of you on it. There's a common theme coming through on investment. The question is, do the panel agree that there's no route to tackling the climate emergency without unprecedented investment in nature and renewables? So let's pick out John on this one. What's your view on the importance of investment in renewables? Take that aspect of the question if you could.
I mean, it's hugely important. If we just think about the government's target in the 10-point plan of getting 40 gigawatts offshore wind by 2030, in order to achieve that, we need to build an offshore network and then reinforce, a huge part of the whole of the UK's infrastructure to be able to deliver that energy safely to people's homes. I think historically we have about 4 major infrastructure projects running in the UK at any one time. In order to achieve the 40 gigawatts of offshore wind, we need 14 running simultaneously. So there's a huge effort. It's achievable, but we need to get on with the delivery of it, and it's going to take significant investment.
And Jeremy, if you pick up on the aspect of investing in nature, if net zero targets can't be made simply by cutting emissions, what pressure, what emphasis should be put on planting trees, for example, investing in nature?
I think that, look, I think nature-based solutions are a big part of this. Some of the work we're doing with WWF is about regenerating seagrass off all of the shoreline of the UK. Seagrass consumes something like 35 times the amount of carbon than trees do, for example. A very, very powerful natural resource that needs to be protected and regenerated. Trees are fantastic. Trees are known technology. One of the key things you know to grow a tree is sunshine. It's a free resource. They need to be planted in the right way, in the right place, of course. And the nation continues to have not enough forest below our long-term target, and that can be another powerful part of that solution as well. So I think a combination of nature-based solutions with things like trees as part of that, together with green technologies that the government is doing such a good job on and so ambitious on, I think provides the overall ecosystem for change.
Fantastic stuff, Jeremy. Thank you. And thank you all. We're now very nearly out of time. So to close, I am going to ask each of our panel now to do a quick 30-second elevator pitch answering the question. What would you say to your customers and colleagues watching today on what success at COP26 looks like for you? So Alison, you're first up. 30 seconds starts now.
Thank you. So we're delighted to be partners, the banking sponsor at COP26. I think the key is to take steps collaboratively to address climate challenge. To our customers and colleagues, I would say collaboration and partnership is the key to making change and central themes for a successful COP26. I think this is the real opportunity for us to come together, to finance the transition, to make positive choices and really build back for a sustainable future. So we're really looking forward to working in partnership with everyone and collaboratively. Thank you.
And Alistair, you're up.
That's great, thank you. Look, I think there are three things. A successful COP26 for SSE playing our part in supporting the UK government's effort to agree further ambitious action which moves the world forward significantly in the fight against climate change. I also want the UK to take the opportunity to cement its position as a world leader in low carbon energy. We're leading in offshore wind currently. We should look to do the same in other areas, and I would particularly call out carbon capture and storage and pumped hydro to provide flexibility. And then finally, I want COP to unite people in this country behind the climate cause. And we can do that by showing all the ways a cleaner planet will benefit people's lives, and going back to things like making sure that we deliver a really effective, clean, green transition to a different economy that keeps all people in good jobs, and we also have a huge opportunity to build back better following the COVID crisis. So three really important things from my perspective.
Jeremy, over to you.
For me, COP26 is a critical moment in the next decade, a pivotal moment on the journey to tackle climate change. We want to be part of that mission. We want our colleagues, our customers to be part of it. The journey to COP26 is to use our voice to affect the right sort of change that leads to the right actions in collaboration, businesses, customers, employees, consumers, that cast the world forward over the next decade. This is the decade when we will tackle climate change or we won't. It's that important.
John, what would you say?
A bit like Alison, I've got three things. I think for me, success for COP26 is one, it really does allow us to showcase across the UK just the expertise that we have to deliver net zero and climate change, which will create opportunities, I think, for the UK going forward. Secondly, I do hope that we come out of COP26 with much more ambitious targets that are signed on to by all countries and in all sectors. And then finally, I'd say, I hope if we project ourselves 5 years forward and we look back on COP26, then it is seen as a pivot moment, a pivotal moment where we see a real acceleration in addressing climate change, and that ultimately we can get to that 1.5 degree centigrade target that we're all aiming for.
And Keith, your turn.
Okay, so today the Scottish Assembly, the Scottish Climate Assembly, issued its draft report, and I'm just going to steal one line from that report. It says, As a nation, we have the opportunity to be pioneers. By taking immediate action, we can empower our next generation to lead more sustainable lives by setting them a new framework. So if COP26 can do that, give us that framework for leading a more sustainable life, what a fantastic success it will be, and what a brilliant opportunity that will give all of us.
And finally to you, Andrew.
Well, echoing what Keith just said, wouldn't it be wonderful if COP26 is the first day of the rest of our lives, lives that are more sustainable, based on 1.5 degree climate targets, and with an agenda that gives prosperity and opportunity to our children and our grandchildren to follow. That would be success.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you all. And thank you for being very good about your 30 seconds. I'm very impressed. That is all we have time for today. Thank you to everyone for attending today's event. And thank you, of course, to all of our guests. So we've heard from Alok Sharma, the man tasked with delivering success at COP26 this November. Andrew Griffith, the UK's net zero business champion. Leaders of 5 businesses who've committed to the summit by joining as principal partners, and of course from colleagues and customers on the issues they're most concerned about. So thank you once again to all of you. So in this critical year for climate action, I think we can all agree from that discussion that to achieve net zero, business, government, civil society, all of us as individuals are all going to need to work together. That's certainly one takeaway from today. One quick request before we go, we're very keen to get your feedback, and a short survey is going to pop up that we'd really like you to fill in if you can, so that we can continue to improve on events like this one. So thank you again on behalf of all of our partners, and enjoy the rest of your day.